For this session, we're going to be hearing from Arzu Sneed. She is a positive psychology coach for leaders, and she's going to tell us about reversing burnout, harnessing positive psychology to foster resilience. I'll give it to Arzu.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Arzu. I am, as she had mentioned, a positive psychology coach. I help leaders, executives, managers navigate the conflicts that come up with their teams, within themselves, to show up as the best leaders that they can be. So we'll talk a little bit about burnout today. I just want to show of hands, how many of you have felt absolutely exhausted in your jobs, and no matter how much you do, you still feel like it's not enough? Wow, a lot of hands. Okay. And how many of you have sacrificed things in your personal lives or work? Wow, hands are already going up. Thinking it's temporarily only for it to become the norm. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of hands. And last question, how many of you have felt guilty when you take time off even though you really need it? Ooh, that was a big one. In our culture, it is glorified to hustle. And a lot of the times, individuals who are constantly on and on the go are seen with a badge of honor. But at what cost? Exhaustion, burnout, and feeling like nothing you do is enough. As leaders, you work really hard to push yourselves and your teams to perform. But when there's a constant amount of pressure that's coming in, that can sometimes feel very stressful, and at times that's ending up giving us the opposite reaction of what we want. Low performance, diminished results, and low morale. For me, burnout stemmed far before my career even began. As a young girl, I struggled to grasp concepts in school, which meant tutoring and after-school programs became my norm just so that I can keep up. In high school, I was juggling work, leading my school's leadership committee, and taking college classes at my local community college, just so that I can get at the same place as everyone else. In college, I was juggling 2 jobs, and I was a full-time student. Not because I had to, but because it was ingrained into who I was, that I constantly felt like I had to just keep doing more. And in the back of my head, even though on the outside I looked like I had everything figured out, in the back of my head, I kept telling myself it's not enough. I need to do more just to catch up with the rest of my classmates. And then fast forward to adulthood, I began my career as a behavioral analyst and coach, helping entrepreneurs, managers, executives manage the relationships that they have with their teams and with themselves. I absolutely love the work that I do, but there came a point a few years ago when my creativity dulled, my vision blurred, and the tasks that once were easy for me to get done were daunting, difficult, and exhausting. And there were moments where I asked myself, why is it so hard for me to get these things done? Why am I feeling numb? Why is it my creativity dull? And it's something that I enjoy doing, so what's happening? And that's when I heard this quote, "The body keeps the score." And then when I took a step back and I had to analyze my life, I realized that throughout my life, from a young girl to high school, college, and adulthood, I had always been doing so many things, but it wasn't just about all the things that I was doing, it was also about how I felt about what I was doing. That voice in the back of my head kept saying, "Go do more, it's not enough." It still didn't feel like I was this hamster on the wheel. But I also know that I'm not the only one. And I also know that burnout is not just a personal struggle. It is an issue that is affecting industries all across the board. And the numbers, they speak for themselves. 50% of the workforce right now is experiencing some level of burnout. Leaders who are burnt out are 2.5 times more likely to disengage from their teams, creating a ripple effect of low morale and performance. And 37% of employees say that they are currently working longer hours after the pandemic than they usually were. So I'm just curious, if people can just raise their hands, I want to know, what is the definition of burnout to you? What do you think that means?
How I feel right now.
Okay.
I've basically I've lost all my resiliency, basically. I've lost all my resiliency. I have like nothing left to give. That's kind of where I've been for like a little bit now. So yeah, that to me, I don't know that I've experienced it this level of it before, but that's gotta be burnout.
Okay. Anyone else? That was a good response. Emotionally and psychologically.
For some of us, physically too. Because
Physically.
I wake up really early in the morning.
Mhm. Physically, emotionally, psychologically. Anything else?
Disconnecting from family members.
Yep. Disconnecting from family members.
Losing your inner flame.
Yes, losing your inner flame. Okay.
Like a cup with a hole in it that everything's just drained out of.
That was a good example. A cup with a hole in it, everything's just getting drained out. Wow.
No motivation.
No motivation.
Nothing matters.
Nothing matters. Wow. We're getting deep in here. All right. Exactly. Is all of those things. Burnout isn't just being tired or exhausted, just had a few days of work that was stressful. It is a state of chronic physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion that's caused by prolonged stress and overwork. Key word, prolonged. So there's the emotional, feeling drained, overwhelmed, and unable to recharge no matter how much sleep you get. And then you have becoming attached. Detached from yourselves, detached from your teams, from your companies, your organizations, from the entire goal. What are we doing here? Sometimes you get detached from that. Or the cynical and negative energy that comes up. We're not gonna be able to do this. We can't get it done. I don't even know if I can perform the way that I should be. Just very doom and gloom mentality. And you also have, obviously, feeling ineffective, unproductive. Tasks that once were easy to get done are now stressful, takes a lot longer, you feel numb. Oh, let's go back a little bit. So the reality is that no one is coming to save you. Not even from burnout. Your managers, your executives, they want you to do well. But at the end of the day, it is up to you to set the boundaries, to prioritize your well-being, and to take back that control. I have worked with leaders in the Silicon Valley, and there has been something that I have noticed, a trend that I've noticed when it comes to burnout. For leaders, burnout impacts their decision-making, it impacts their emotional intelligence, their adaptability, and their ability to lead with clarity, which then affects their teams, as employees with a burnt out manager are 70% more likely to get burnt out themselves. And then we go to the organization. Chronic burnout leads to absenteeism, turnover, healthcare costs, which ultimately just ruins the entire bottom line. So you see that it's not just the leader, the team, organization, it is all of it. So I want to give you guys an example. I was working with a senior leader, and they had brought up to me that they had multiple high-stake projects that they had to deal with, and teams, and they felt like pressure was on top of their shoulders, and they had to get everything done on their own. That was a lot, which meant they stayed up late at night to work. They skipped meals. They took on the tasks of more people than they should have, just to stay afloat. And at first, their team was admired by this. It felt like motivation. Yeah, our leader is, constantly wanting to do all these things, and they're always working. I admire that, the hustle mentality. But then eventually, their team started to feel the pressure that they had to keep up with their manager. So they started to cut corners, and they started to skip meals and stay late at night and answer those emails because my senior manager's doing it. In order for me to keep up with them, I have to also do it. And then when it came to my client having to present to their clients, they were exhausted. The version of them that showed up in that meeting was not the same. All those symptoms that you guys have mentioned is exactly how they were feeling in that moment, which costed them that client. It costed them the relationship, it costed them that project. And productivity dropped, safety risks rise, client relationships suffered, and employees started to contemplate leaving. Oh, oops, my apologies. So, when I bring this up, I know a lot of individuals will say, well, it's a weakness. I'm strong, I can get this done, I can do all these things. I don't want to think about my thoughts and my emotions that are coming up. I'm being weak. I can get through it. But the reality is it's not a weakness. If you don't acknowledge and notice these symptoms and these signs that come up for you, it will actually give you the opposite reaction of what you want long term. So if you want success, stop doing what you're doing. So now, obviously, what causes leadership burnout? There's some of the basics, such as your nutrition, your eating or not eating, your sleep, and then you have, obviously, the more important one is your own identity, your own morale, the things that you do for yourself outside of your jobs, how you show up for your families, your friends, your hobbies, the things that you enjoy. And then let's take it a step further. You have the self-imposed pressures, such as perfectionism. Everything must be flawless. It has to go a certain way. It has to be perfect. The over-responsibility, taking the emotional and operational weight of everyone on your team. The fear of delegation. If I don't do this myself, then it's not going to get done right. Work becoming your identity, where your self-worth is tied to your performance at work. And what you get done makes you feel good. And if you don't get it done, then you don't feel good about yourself. Then you have external pressures, of course, the ones such as high expectations from upper management, from clients, from stakeholders. And lastly, navigating the uncertainty of the VUCA world, which we will get into in a little bit. So as I had mentioned, your health, what you eat, the sleep, the balance that you have in your own personal life is all very important. But the reality is those things alone is not going to help you prevent burnout. You can have a great weekend where you get enough rest, you eat a few good meals, you do maybe a few of your favorite hobbies, and you spend time with family. But when you get back to work on Monday, that negative mindset, that low energy, that numbness is still there. None of that is going away just because you slept a few extra hours. So that takes us to the psychological aspect of things. When you think of psychology, a lot of the times your mind may go to, well, let's focus on the negative, let's focus on the problems, the stressors, the anxieties, the worries, the burnout, and let's shine light on them. But positive psychology takes a different twist on things. And instead of just focusing on the problem, we take a step back and we figure out, what are your strengths? Where are you resilient? And where are the times where you have handled tough situations with ease? And let's shine light on those moments. And then when you implement positive psychology into coaching, that is where we apply evidence-based strategies to enhance your well-being and your leadership abilities. And this type of coaching has become a powerful tool for top corporate leaders, boasting an 89% success rate to accelerate their career growth and their leadership effectiveness. So going back to the negative mindset that I had brought up, it can be very easy for us to think about the negatives. I know I do at times. It can be easy when things are going wrong in your personal life or in your job, where you can just ruminate on those problems and they just kind of consume you. Research actually shows that our brains are naturally wired to want to focus on the negatives more than the positives, which magnifies the negative and glorifies it in your mind, and you're like a hamster on a wheel, repeating them over and over again. And when you do this, it turns into a downward spiral, where those negative thoughts and stressors can turn into a cognitive distortion, making you see the world in this way, where it becomes a feedback loop for you. So I'll give you an example. If you wake up in the morning and you wake up late and your alarm clock doesn't go off, and you spill some coffee on your clothes, and you're trying to drive to work, and there's traffic, and there's an accident, there's so many problems going on. You get to work and you find out there's some issues that you didn't, unexpected issues come up, and somebody was sick and they couldn't get their tasks done, and then now you're, I have to do this, and I'm really frustrated, this morning didn't go well, and now I have to deal with this stuff. And you go home, you wake up the next day, you're like, I have to deal with this thing yesterday, that now I gotta, oh my God, I can't even handle this right now. So you go to work with that same energy, and you handle all the problems, and you go home, I'm exhausted, I don't really want to do anything, and I'm just gonna go to bed, and wake up the next day with the same energy. You see what I'm saying? It's a downward spiral. Your mind was thinking about all the problems, and you were feeling frustrated, so you went to bed and you woke up with the same problems and that mindset. And that is called a downward spiral. And once you go down that downward spiral, it can be very easy, where your mind will just keep you there. And you'll keep looking for more of those problems. And the reason why I bring this up is because when we focus on what's wrong, we create an environment where the people around us feel like nothing they do is enough. I'm sure there have been times where maybe you were around someone who was very negative, and maybe you had a little bit of a positive mindset. Actually, let me just show you this image right here. Both of I show this to my clients all the time. Both of them, they're going in the same direction. One individual is feeling really sad and doom and gloom, and maybe they just don't want to be in the bus, and they just had a bad morning, and they're looking at this stone mountain, where the other individual is like, wow, look at the sun. Look at the mountains. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful sunset. They're in the same path, going in the same direction, doing the same thing, but have two different perspectives of what's happening there. And that's sometimes what can happen at work. When you have that negative energy that makes other people around you feel like, okay, nothing we do is enough, or they're seeing it from this doom and gloom, and that starts to make you go down that downward spiral. I actually had a client of mine who brought up that they felt like their team was miscommunicating deadlines and miscommunicating with each other, and they were just really frustrated with how their team operated. And I asked them, so how did you communicate these things to your team about what was going on and how you felt? They're like, oh, that's a great question that you bring that up. I held a team meeting after the project was done to debrief, and I immediately started to point out the things that they were wrong. They had mistakes here and there, so I had to tell them this is an issue. And I asked them, why did you guys do it this way? We had already discussed it, so what was the reasoning for this, and this? That energy made their team feel demotivated, discouraged, unappreciated, and it made them very fearful for making future mistakes. When we talked about this in our session, my client turned to me, and I'm sure maybe some of you are having this thought of, well, isn't it my job as a leader to point out the mistakes and point out the things that they need to do differently? Because how are we going to grow if we don't change? I'm supposed to be doing this. Absolutely. You obviously want to grow. You want your team to improve. You don't want to just stay stagnant and say it's sunshine and rainbows all the time and everything is great. But I asked them to do a different twist on things. I had them recognize their team's achievements And I had them look at, even if it's a small or big success that happened, acknowledge it, appreciate it, shine a light on it, remind them, you guys did great there. I'm impressed, I'm improved, you improved here, you did an amazing, show them that you see them. And when they did that, I also asked my client to just notice the difference on their facial expressions between the last meeting compared to this one when you do this first. And they had told me that either there were more smiles, there's more eye contact, and that changed the energy in the room. So then the next question they asked was, what do you think we can do to improve? By asking this question, it not only allowed them to collaboratively figure the decisions out and figure out where they can do better, they felt confident because their manager and their leader looked at them and told them where they did well instead of just diminished who they were and made them feel small. And when you're already feeling confident, when someone acknowledges you and notices your strengths, that makes you feel good to be like, well, I think we can improve here. And actually, I think we can do this, and I can work with so-and-so, and we can, and so on and so forth. So it really does start with having that positive mindset, acknowledging the good, and then of course, in what ways can we improve? How can we do this better? So I'm gonna have all of you do an exercise. I hope everyone has a sheet of paper in front of them. If you don't, please raise your hands.
I was just gonna share,
Yeah.
you described the project and how it was in the negative spiral of the project. A lot of the professionals here, we don't have project ends. It's day after day after day of constant safety leadership with no really defined end or beginning of anything. So it's you do find yourself in a spiral. It's long term if you don't get out of it. So.
Yeah, which is even, I would say, even worse because, like you had mentioned, there's no end to it. To take a break and kind of, okay, what are we going to do to reset, to redo it? Where that means you're going to have to take those moments throughout it, checkpoints of, what can we do differently? Let's maybe set this up once a month, every 2 months, and let's assess what needs to change and what needs to do, how we can improve. Opposed to everything is chaos and I'm going to have you, step one, think of a recent situation where you have received negative feedback, where you have faced a challenge that was difficult, and I want you to write down what that was. That's about 50%. And then I want you to write down the first negative thought that came to your mind in response to this challenge. So I'll give you an example. My team didn't meet the deadline. I must not be leading effectively. So whatever that negative thought was, write that down. And then I want you to, as step 3, write down 3 positive aspects about that situation. So these can be small wins, lessons learned, strengths demonstrated despite the challenge that you had. So I'll give you the example. The team didn't meet the deadline, but they worked hard and collaborated under pressure. We identified the bottleneck that we can improve for next time. And the final project was high quality despite the delay. So for some of you who are still writing, continue writing. I'm just going to add that last part. I want you to rewrite that original negative thought that you had into a more balanced sentence. So for example, while we missed the deadline, we strengthened our collaboration and pinpointed ways that we can improve efficiently moving forward. So just try to rewrite that and add in those positives that came up for you. Okay, I hope that's enough time for everyone. What I would like for you guys to do, if you don't feel comfortable sharing the exact example or situation, that's totally fine. But if you can summarize it to an extent, turn to the person to the right or left of you. I'll give everyone a minute, and then you'll switch. Just tell the person next to you maybe how the experience was for you to do the exercise, or what it was, and pinpoint the situation and then those 3 positives. So it'll be one person speaks, one person listens, and then I will switch you guys. Starting now. All right. If I can have everyone's attention again. Comfortable. I would love to hear. There was a lot of conversations going around. I saw the energy shift in this room from the I'm burnt out to like, let me talk, like this is so I actually want to hear, how did reframing that, how did that go for you?
Therapeutic.
Therapeutic, okay.
Yeah.
The how?
Actually, when I started to write it and then I started to write the frustration, I kind of felt myself get a little upset. But then when I went and reframed it, I was actually like, wow, we really did a great job.
Oh.
So it was like a complete shift in the mind of just thinking it from a different perspective, I guess.
Wow, I love that. Okay.
Well, I utilize something that I learned in my relationship.
In your,
It's like
okay.
taking a step back and breathing. And then when you take a step back and breathing, you're rethinking how you're communicating with others about how you communicate. So this aligns a lot with how my thought process goes. And I take that step back and try to relay the information in the right information. Right? So it's very beneficial. It's impactful, and it helps you your mental state when you're thinking about it.
Taking a step back, rethinking, recalibrating. I love that. I love that you're using it in your relationship. I think everyone should do that. Or else it'd be a really depressing world. Especially fighting and yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Oh come on! I heard a lot of voices. There's a lot of people speaking here. I know we got some stories. Yes. Since you're in front of me, I'm gonna give you the mic.
Sure.
So mine is based off of like a pretty low power, like I have no power to make any changes in this. But by reframing it now, I feel like although it's not the power that I wish I had to change the actual thing, I do have some power in the situation and my reaction to it. So I think that was really valuable. So I went from powerless to, I don't want to say powerful, but some power.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? No? Okay. Yes.
Patience, and then just it's patience, and then just I guess having some sort of trust that things will just work out, and then they ended up working out.
Patience. Okay, I love that one. Yes.
I think it's a real good exercise for you to take accountability for your own thoughts,
Mhm.
right? Because we originally thought, what? Why? And then you took a step back and you had to rewrite it, rethink it. And that felt much more pleasant, that felt much more calming. And so it kind of just lets you know you're responsible for your own things too, and your way of thinking.
Yes. I love that. Great answer. This is amazing. Okay. Let's move on. So I brought up the term the VUCA world. This term was coined by the military, and it is heavily used in the workforce right now. It stands for V, volatile, U, uncertain, C, complex, and A, ambiguous. So you go into work and you have an expectation of how things are supposed to go. You have an idea of all the tasks that you have to get done. And then with the snap of a finger, things change. Unexpected issues come up, and you have to pivot really fast. This type of world that we live in and this environment can be really tricky for individuals who like to have control and who do not like when things change rapidly, because now you have to go from thinking one way, so I have to get this task done. I kind of envision this too as like you're an octopus, and you have your tentacles and 20 different tasks that you have to get done. And you're thinking of, okay, well I have to do this, and I also have to get that done, and then this has happened, and then that. And you're just trying to like patch up all these fires that come your way. That can be very exhausting. So some examples in the VUCA world is Netflix disrupting the DVD rental industry, such as Blockbuster, or Uber and Lyft coming and disrupting the taxi industry. These two examples weren't just like overnight. It's a slow progression. But then you have the COVID-19 pandemic, where that impacted individuals, businesses, organizations, and people had to just adapt as they went. and they had to find solutions in new ways. Where you have, new competitors disrupting your industry that you have to pivot. Let's get that one. So, what is the solution for this? Slow down to go faster. When you slow down, you're able to focus on what truly matters rather than getting distracted by all those unnecessary tasks that are getting thrown your way. So like that octopus, you have all these tasks that are coming your way and you want to do them all at once. Some of them are unnecessary. And I hope I'm not the first one to tell you this, but you can't get everything that you want to get done in this world. Or you can, I don't want that to discourage you. You have the ability to do whatever you want to do. However, all the tasks that are coming your way, you can't get all of those things done at once. It's just not possible. There are constantly things being thrown at us, and our to-do lists are always getting bigger. So when you slow down, you get to identify the priorities and let go of the things that are not essential. And I want you all to think of this very simple question whenever you feel like that octopus, and that is, what's most important right now? Can anyone tell me how this question can change that for you when you're feeling like that octopus? What is most important right now? How does that question change anything? Yes?
Brings you to the present moment.
Brings you to the present moment.
That's what I was gonna say. It both forces you to check in with yourself.
Forces you to check in with yourself. Yes?
Helps you to prioritize and let go of the stuff that's not really important.
Yes, exactly. In that moment, you want to do it all. But what is important right now? That really changes it all. And also, our thoughts can really trap us. Because we have 60 to 70 thoughts per day. They're designed to help us, protect us, save us from situations. But sometimes those thoughts can just turn into negativity, frustration, and stress. And 90% of the things that we think about don't actually end up happening. But those thoughts just keep coming. So when you are that, I keep going back to this, but that octopus of having so many different things getting done, you have to get done, your mind is going, oh, well, then this is happening, and that could happen, and this issue can pop up. Your mind is everywhere. So when you bring your focus back to that one, you let go of all those thoughts. Those thoughts are going to keep trying to come. And this is why you have to remind yourself of this question: what is most important right now? So that you can just let go of those. Your thoughts, they impact your actions. In positive psychology, this is known as thought, emotion, behavioral cycle. What we believe influences how we feel, which then impacts how we show up in the world. So if, for example, as a leader, you're constantly thinking, I have to do everything myself or it's not going to get done right. That will make you feel overwhelmed, anxious, undervalued. And then how you're going to act may be micromanaging, exhaustion, ultimately burnout. So if you think that you don't have control, then you will feel powerless. And then that will make you act as overworking or shutting down. Do you guys get the pattern that's going on here? Okay. So